Hi, I'm AJ Nash, Digital Intelligence Advocate for Authentic8, with another Intel drop. Today I want to talk about how our brains sabotage our security program through cognitive bias. Now listen, a SOC analyst sees an alert for unusual outbound traffic from accounting with a signature that matches a known APT group that hit a competitor last month. Now within minutes, they've convinced themselves this is the same adversary running the same playbook. They start writing the incident report before they've even finished the investigation. Some of this is just a matter of time and pressure, right? We're all in a hurry to get things done. This looks like it makes sense. We've just seen this before. We rush to do it. But the problem here is they just anchored on the first piece of information they saw, and now everything else is getting filtered through that lens. It isn't laziness. Again, this is about being far too busy in a lot of cases, but it's also just how our brains are wired, and it can undermine our security program. I spent nearly two decades in the intelligence community, and one of the things they drill into us is that our brain is actively working against good analysis. Humans are pattern matching machines. It's great for survival, but terrible for objective threat assessment. So let me hit you with 3 cognitive biases that are probably impacting your security operations right now. The first one's confirmation bias. You form a hypothesis about what's happening, and suddenly you only see evidence that supports that. Everything else gets dismissed or ignored. Entire incident response teams convince themselves they're dealing with ransomware when they're actually looking at a wiper disguised as ransomware. Ransomware is what everyone's talking about, so that's what they expect to find. Now, second bias you might run into a lot is availability heuristic. Recent memorable events seem way more likely than they actually are. Your organization just dealt with a phishing campaign, so now every suspicious email looks like phishing. Meanwhile, the SQL injection attack happening on your web application goes unnoticed because it's just not top of mind. Threat actors who understand this deliberately create noise to mask their real operations. Now, for those who are thinking, isn't this just recency bias? Well, it can be. But recency bias is really a specific type of availability heuristic because of the ease of recalling information is influenced specifically by how recent it happened. It's a subset that's most common because we do tend to remember things that just happened better than things from further in the past. But the entire bias is about whatever we're remembering. It doesn't necessarily have to be recent. The third bias I would say to watch for is anchoring. It's the first piece of information you receive, whether it's an alert signature, a colleague's offhand comment, or a headline you read, that becomes your reference point for everything else. Intelligence analysts call this making the evidence fit the hypothesis instead of letting the evidence lead you to the conclusion. So what do you do about these cognitive biases? Well, the intelligence community has a whole toolkit for this. There are 66 structured analytic techniques that we use to force ourselves to challenge our assumptions. They include things like devil's advocacy, what-if analysis, alternative futures analysis, structured self-critique, A/B testing. Not everybody's going to know all of these or use them. One that we use most often is analysis of competing hypotheses, ACH. In simple terms, this says that before we conclude what's happening, we write down what we'd expect to see if we were wrong. And if we can't find that evidence, maybe we have to reconsider. But again, most people aren't trained in these analytic techniques. That doesn't make them bad at their jobs. It just means they're human. And humans have cognitive biases that adversaries exploit every single day. Recognizing the problem is the first step for us. Instead of pretending that our team is immune, we need to build processes that account for these biases. Building systematic approaches to counter bias is where intelligence tradecraft separates good security programs from the ones that keep missing what's right in front of them. So again, another way for me to advocate for the importance of intelligence-driven security, and professionals who understand intelligence, whether they come from the intelligence community or they're trained in the private sector. There's lots of ways to learn these techniques, but they're incredibly important, and it goes beyond your intelligence team. It really needs to go across your entire security organization. All right, listen, that's all the time I have for today. Thanks for checking in. Stay vigilant.